Welcome to the channel, viewers. A bit of a background on what the Hamas is about and how they infiltrate Palestinians and other Muslim people. This man's been captured. It's an Hamas terrorist who admits to deliberately murdering children in this chilling IDF interrogation video.
الزملاء تبعتنا كنا بس نكتب.
شو اسمك ربعي؟
عامر سامي مرزوق ابو غوش.
من وين؟
غزة تفاح.
تفاح. اوكي. قول لي قبل ما نبدا شو كانت وظيفتك؟ انت نخبة صح؟ شو كانت وظيفتك في النخبة؟
جندي.
من امتى انت في النخبة؟
تقريبا من 8 شهور لسنة.
فاهم عليك. لما دخلتوا شو كانت التعليمات تبعكم؟
احنا الزملاء تبعتنا كنا بس نكتب.
يعني؟
مش مهمتنا الخط، مهمتنا القتل.
شو قالوا لكم بدكم تقتل كل واحد كل اللي بتشوف؟
بتشوفوا بتقتلوه ويرجع بعدين.
ما في فرق بين رجال نسوان اولاد الكل؟ اوكي. ليش الواحد بده يقتل الكل؟ شو لكم؟ شو الهدف؟
قالوا لنا هذول كلهم مستوطنين جنود وفي منهم جنود. اقتلوهم كلهم.
That'd be a lie. Women and children aren't soldiers.
بتشوفوهم.
اوكي كمان نسوان جنود؟
ما قالوا لي جنود لا.
So he's just trying to be ignorant. He's trying to throw Hamas and his leaders under the bus. This is what they do. There's no loyalty.
الكل كمان نسوان كمان أولاد. طيب ولوين أنت في إسرائيل دخلت؟
كفار عزة.
وكفار عزة كانت المهمة الوحيدة؟
هي منطقتنا كفار عزة كانت.
وبعدين بعد كفار عزة شو كان بدكم تسووا؟
ما بعرفش احنا رابعة نسحب نرجع غزة.
فاهم. طيب أنت بتقول إنه المهمة كانت كفار عزة. هلا احكي لي من وقت ما وصلتوا على كفار عزة شو صار؟
Okay, so they were to do that particular kibbutz. Let's have a look at that kibbutz. Okay, so let's make it very clear. This has graphic content. Viewer discretion advised.
It's not a war. It's not a battlefield. It's a massacre. It's a terror activity. It's a massacre. Something that we used to imagine as our grandfather and grandmother in the pogrom in Europe and other places. It's not something that happened in the new history, in the near history.
But the warning was scarcely enough for what lay ahead.
And today the international media went in here and saw the carnage and destruction that Hamas terrorists left behind in this village.
What first responders, defense forces, reporters have seen at Kfar Aza has shocked even the most battle-hardened people. Multiple news agencies have reported that among the dead were 40 children, some decapitated.
Something that we used to imagine as our grandfather and grandmother in the pogrom in Europe and other places. It's not something that happened in the new history, in the near history.
Israel's security forces are still counting the bodies, going door to door, carefully watching for booby traps, grenades, as the true extent of the carnage comes to light. This is more than 2 days after they took control of Kfar Aza kibbutz, barely a few kilometers from the Gaza Strip, that was attacked by Hamas in the early hours of October 7. Nearly 70 terrorists stormed the kibbutz, leaving behind a trail of blood and destruction. Kfar Aza, once a peaceful kibbutz bordering the Gaza Strip with a peaceful community, is now a graveyard, strewn with bodies, blood, and the scars of a horrific Saturday massacre.
Now we'll zoom in on this community here. This is the community of Kfar Aza, a little kibbutz. And as you can see, quite close, a few minutes running distance from the border to Kfar Aza. And today the international media went in here and saw the carnage and destruction that Hamas terrorists left behind in this village. And what did they see? Something out of a scene of an apocalyptic movie or something related to zombies. I can't explain it in other words. Bodies out on the streets, burned houses, cars riddled with bullet holes and looted, all of the houses looted, and the bodies of Israeli civilians, men, women, children, the elderly, on the streets scattered after they were dragged out of their shelters and executed at point blank.
شو كان بدكم تسووا؟
ما بعرفش، احنا نسمع، احنا 4 نسحب نرجع غزة.
فاهم. طيب انت بتقول انه المهمة كانت كفر عزة. هلا احكي لي من وقت ما وصلتوا على كفر عزة
تمام.
شو صار؟
وصلنا كفر عزة، احنا كان في معنا دليل مزون مجموعتنا في مستقي في مطار، واحنا في جيب كنا. وصلنا كفر عزة عند السيارات، نزلنا المعمط هذا محمد نهض البطش فتح الحدود، ايش اسمها، السلك اللي عند الحدود كفر عزة، فتحوا بقنبلة للشباب الباقيين، في كان شباب فتح لهم اياه. وبعدين سبناه ورحنا احنا مرقنا اول بيت يعني مرقنا عليه، فتشنا فيش فيه شيء، في حمزة الزاوية حارق الأوضة اللي برا ولعها. تمام، ولعها اللي هو بعديها طلع زلمة من جنان اللي ورا معاه قرابيش، شاف أبو أحمد وحمزة طخوا عليه قتلوه. هي أول شيء اللي صار. بعدين رحنا على البيت الثاني، طخنا على الشبابيك وكسرنا القزاز، مرقنا عليه، فتشنا البيت ما لقيناش فيه حد. ولعت أنا الأوضة في البيت، أوضة النوم ولعتها. طلعنا على البيت الثالث كان في مرة قتلها حمزة طخها، ما مرقنا جوا البيت.
كيف طخها؟
قلت
أما وين طخها؟
ما شفتهاش والله، بس طخها كانت واقفة عند الباب، هي على الشباك، وبعدها قدامنا.
وقعت؟
وقعت، ما مرقناش جوا البيت. كملنا مرقنا كمان البيت، ما لقيناش فيه حدا. كملنا ساعتها قعدنا البيت تقريبا ساعة ونص، جبنا لابتوب فتحنا أخبار قعدنا فيه من ساعة لساعة ونص. ساعتها يجوا 3 علينا، 3 مستوطنين، شفناهم. شافونا وشفناهم، لو صار اشتباك.
He's lying. They wouldn't have sat there for an hour and a half. It was a frenzy.
صرنا نطخ على بعض اشتباك. أنا طخت واحد، شفت له لابس طاسة ولون بعرفش مش مبين إلا من فوق، كان طخته ووقع وصار اشتباك. وأبو أحمد وحمزة رموا قنابل عليه.
So what he's trying to do is leave out the murders of civilians. He's trying to make out that he only fought soldiers.
صار اشتباك. بعد شوية شردنا احنا، بعد ما رموا القنابل شردنا، وقف الاشتباك. تمام، وقف الاشتباك وطلعنا من الباب الثاني، مش من الباب نفسه، الباب الثاني اللي ورا. طلعنا بعد رحنا على حراش، على منطقة الحراش تحت الشجر تخبينا.
That's a lie. He's lying.
تخبينا من ساعة ونص 2 لنا تحت اللداك. بعدين مرقنا في بيت جنبينا كان من الشباك، مرقنا فيه ومرقنا فتشنا البيت، سمعنا صوت ولاد صغار في قلب الملجأ. طخنا على الملجأ.
بإيش تاخذوا الملجأ؟
أول شيء ما طخناش على الملجأ، مرقنا وفي الشيشة قعدنا قعدنا في الأوضة وكلنا طمع وشربنا مية. قعدنا بعدين وقفنا نسمع صوت صغار.
شو الصوت سمعته؟
صوتنا تمتمة صغار ومش عارف شو دخلنا في البيت احنا.
تقدر سامعني عشان افهم؟
عياط ولد صغير زي هيك.
كأنه ايش؟ سوي انت؟
ولد بعيط.
اوكي.
طخيت انا وطخ احمد ابو كمال، طخينا على الباب.
لحد ما؟
وبعدين بطلنا نسمع صوت.
طخيتوا لحد ما بطلتوا تسمعوا صوت؟
ما سمعنا الصوت ساعتها. بعدين جا الجيش علينا، اشتبكنا مع الجيش.
So they killed the children.
يعني بطلتوا تسمعوا الصوت معناته ايش؟ شو صار؟
ماتوا. بعدين اجى الجيش واشتبكنا معه. اشتبكنا تقريبا مع أقل 10 دقائق، بعدين سلمنا حالنا دخلنا من
They
الشارع.
didn't hand themselves in, they were overrun. There's a lot of lying. You cannot believe these Arabs, they lie.
الأحمر يا ورجال تاني بعد. أيوة شغال. ورجال تاني شقة تاني. خلاص.
Early morning, October 7th. Hamas's Nukhba force, still in their lairs, turn on the cameras that will record their attack and the massacre to follow. Along with the tea and trail mix, the terrorist on the left lays out this bag.
That looks like drugs to me.
Captagon.
Speed drugs.
See?
See, it was a frenzy. It wasn't like that man, that terrorist was making out that was being interviewed. It was a frenzy.
This is the symbol of the Muslim Brotherhood. Allah Wahid, one God.
Islamist text.
Now the terrorists face the Israeli obstacle. 4 layers of fences, barbed wire, the old fence, earth mounds, and the $3 billion smart fence. After the second blast, they make their way through the old fence and proceed to the smart fence. The terrorists have now invaded Israel. A stopwatch counting from the first explosion until the moment terrorist squad number 1 crosses into Israel shows 7.5 minutes. In that time, they meet no Israeli resistance.
זה מאוד מתוזמן יפה.
It's very well timed, based on extensive exercises.
אימונים ומודלים.
There's a surprise factor here, and their numbers. Their numbers is what tipped the scales in the crucial first minutes.
On a different route in the Gaza envelope, Nukhba squad number 3 ambushes civilian cars. The radio is on. An ecstatic song is calling, "Bomb, burn. Leave no Zionist alive."
It seems you're even more upset when you see the terrorists.
Because I see the vacuum. I say this with
Here, the terrorists come into view of Kibbutz Sufa. They also encounter fire from the adjacent military base, which stalls them. Having crossed the orchard, they are within reach of the army stronghold.
What we're hearing is only AK-47 fire. You can tell that there's no IDF fire at this time.
The outer fence of the base is breached. 15 minutes. That's how long it took this squad from the moment they crossed the fence till they charged the Sufa military base. The fight at the main gate of the base lasted several hours, thanks to the resistance of Israel's Nahal forces. This terrorist seems in charge of the attack on the base. He gives the orders, although no one calls him by rank.
You see a commander sending his men forward. You won't see that in the IDF.
The supposed commander catches up. The terrorists enter the barracks. There's almost no one there. Most soldiers in the base are fighting in the mess hall. Many of them are wounded, some seriously. Here, a terrorist films himself in the mirror. Fussing around documentation and the apparent orders from commanders inside Gaza for propaganda footage keep stirring quarrels.
هي يا عم في بارود زياده بدل الاتفاق صور هينا بصور شغاله
صاي من طرفك رسالة أخيرة طرفنا
This is the Hamas's military radio. Simple walkie-talkies with few miles range. They've used them for years. According to reports, especially in the foreign media, 8,200 IDF Signal Intelligence Unit stopped listening to those
and clear the base from terrorists. Meanwhile, in nearby Kibbutz Sufa, terrorist squad number 4 manages to enter.
ועוד כשיש כאבי תופת. אני רציתי את היד שלי. דרך אגב, שבוע אחרי ראיתי את אמא שלי במסיבת עיתונאים. כאילו, היה טלוויזיה בבית, וזה שידורים שחוזרים על עצמם כל הזמן באל-ג'זירה. והמחבל אמר לי, כאילו, בואי תראי, בשביל להכאיב לי. בואי תראי את אמא שלך כדי להכאיב לי, כאילו. לא בשביל בואי תראי איך היא מדברת בכתבה. כל מה שאני מבקשת ממנהיגי העולם זה להחזיר את התינוקת שלי הביתה.
On the 7th of October, Hamas terrorists invaded Israel. Right here, they killed Israelis. They raped our women. They beheaded the children. They burned entire families alive. Hamas themselves uploaded those videos. But the problem is that there are people who are denying the massacre.
The energy of the day beginning and everyone dancing and jumping and happy, and suddenly the music stopped. When the music stopped, we started looking around and didn't understand. Maybe it was a problem, I don't know. My boyfriend was with the party.
Where?
We went to the road. There were no cars, no noise, no one around, and we were like, started running there. He told us to go the other way. Okay, let's run to this way. And in the middle of the way, somehow, someone from the party stopped and saw us. We said, no, please, we need a ride.
So this is the point where you actually stop the car, right?
Yeah, around here. So we didn't know exactly where we were going to stop. And we don't know what was going on, how many people are outside, what are we gonna do, how are we gonna get out. The people were scared. They were getting more and more inside and getting one on top of the other. I was here with my boyfriend. My boyfriend grabbed my face and we were here to the wall talking to each other. He was telling me, babe, look at my eyes and forget about everything that's going on in here. Rafa was on us praying, and people were telling each other just to stay quiet and praying. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, just praying for their lives. We heard her getting killed, and after that, the terrorists celebrating and screaming. I woke up and I heard a lot of people saying, "Tiftechu et hadelet!"
Open the door.
Open the door!
But there's no doors here.
But it was so dark inside that the people that were in the back started to imagine that maybe there was a door. It was so dark we couldn't see anything, like you have your eyes closed in a dark room. We couldn't see nothing. We just heard them laughing at us and screaming and celebrating. Like it was fun to them to finally find a place. There are so many Jews confined and can't move and can't do anything about themselves. They were so glad and proud of what they were doing. And I was panicked, and people were screaming and crying and hurt and bleeding. They were best friends that watched each other literally die and bleed in front of their eyes, one next to each other. Everyone came inside of here in groups. 3 friends, brother and sister, boyfriend and girlfriend, and everyone got separated from the people that they most loved. There was Ragi. אני רוצה רק להוציא אותך ממנה. Please just calm down. I just want to take her off her. Please. And she wouldn't listen.
That panicked you. So where was he?
He was at the entrance, right there. I couldn't see him. I was on the floor, and it was very dark. And Rafa, he wasn't next to me. He went over the bodies because he couldn't breathe anymore. Kind of gave up at some. And then I wouldn't see anything, and I would scream to Rafa, "Rafa, are you still alive?" And he would say yes, or moan, or do something. And then I would say, "Hanani, amor," it's babe or love. "Where are you? Are you there?"
No answer.
No answer. And I would go back to my own thoughts. I looked at people's phones. There were a lot of phones thrown inside of the shelter, and I would see mom, dad, babe, honey, brother, like the names of the people calling. And I would think to myself, these parents are calling this person that is so exploded that I can't even tell them how he looked. And I took my first step.
On them?
On the bodies. I tried not to.
You can't.
And I don't know if you believe in God or don't, or maybe I was just hallucinating. But then I heard a voice, a male voice in my ear. And that's not possible because I couldn't hear. And I heard a very clear voice telling me, "Do not step on people's heads," in Hebrew. I was getting outside, and I started to look for Hanani because I didn't know where he was. And I would try to analyze the bodies, and no, he's too fat, or he's too tall, or he has a tattoo that he doesn't have, or this doesn't quite much look at him. And I got to Daniel, and then I got here with him. When I got here, I saw Rafa. Rafa was sitting pretty much here, just dropped to the floor, just like this. And I screamed at him. I said, "I think Hanani died. I think he's dead. He's dead. Hanani died." Trying to understand what that meant, to convince myself, yes. I was saying, "Hanani died, Hanani died," and he was like, talvez não seja nessa vida ainda, mas você ainda vai ser.
טס עם הטנדר מקצה לקצה, אתה יודע, לוחץ פול גז, לא מעניין אותי, אני גם מכיר את השטחים, אז אני יודע איפה יש בורות. ואני טס ואני אומר, כמה שיותר להספיק, כמה שיותר.
לאיפה הולכים עכשיו, למעודי? הנה, פה, כן. וואי, תחזור אתה אחורה, תעשה רגע. רגע, אתה, תקשיב, תעלה לאוטו ותצא משם, אנחנו נבוא.
אומרת לי, אחת הבנות, תגיד לי מי אתה. אמרתי לה, אני סתם מושבניק שבאתי לחלץ אתכם. ואני אומר לה, שנייה, תני לנו לעוף מכאן, למה יש פה מלא מחבלים, ואני נוסף זה.
תיזהר, מחבלים, אחי. קח פה משמאל. תיזהר.
היא אומרת לי, לא יכול להיות, אתה בטוח איזה איש מיוחד, איזה סוכן שב"כ או משהו, אני אומר לה, למה? היא אומרת לי, תסתכל, אין פה אף אחד. אין פה אף אחד, אנחנו כמה שעות תקועות פה. אין פה אף אחד, לא יכול להיות, אין פה אף אחד, אתה היחידי שהגיע.
אתם 3, גם אם יש פצועים, יש לכם 3 רכבים, אנחנו נביא את 3.
כששטח המסיבה שרץ מחבלים בכל מקום, עוז והג'יפ שלו היו לבד. נקודת האור היחידה של מאות המבלים שניסו להיחלץ מהתופת.
בשלב מסוים אני מוצא מישהו בוואדי שם בשטח. העלה איתי לרכב, אמר שיש לו מיקום של ניצולים. איך קוראים לך? אז מה אתה עושה פה?
הייתי פה גם במסיבה.
היית במסיבה?
כן, אבל אני קצין באגוז, קצין במילואים.
והוא עולה איתי ברכב, אנחנו נכנסים שוב לשטח המסיבה, אבל מאזור אחר.
מצלמות הרכב של הג'יפ שלו מתעדות כל רגע בזמן שהוא מחפש אחר סימני חיים של ניצולים.
יש מפוחדים גם שמתחבאים. תחשוב.
כן, אני יודע, הלכתי איתם כל הדרך.
אני יודע, הבאנו כבר הבאנו למושב לפטיש. מה זה השריפה? מה זה המכוניות של המסיבה?
כן.
איפה הייתה המסיבה?
כולם השאירו אותה.
אין בעיה, המכוניות השאירו אותם, צודקים. איפה הייתה המסיבה? שמה? שם מכוניות?
וכאילו איפה כך פה משמאל.
תיזהר.
ימינה.
תשמע, זה קשה, זה מלחיץ, זה מפחיד. יש לי אישה ו4 בנות, סגורות בממ"ד כולם, דואגות, ואתה לא יודע, אתה יודע שיש מחבלים גם באזור. פשוט ריססו בכל מקום שרק היה אפשר, זה פשוט לא נתפס הרוע הזה. וחוזר חזרה, ככה נגלה אחרי נגלה, הובלה אחרי הובלה.
הוא נסע הלוך וחזור, שוב ושוב, מאזור המסיבה שברעים, למושבים מסלול ופטיש, כל פעם בדרך שונה. הוא הצליח להציל לבדו לא פחות מ120 מבלים ומבלות. את השמות של מי שהציל, הוא וחברו ריכזו בכתב יד, רשימות עוז של מי שנשארו בחיים.
לא צריך לבכות.
צריך לבכות, ברוך השם, אנחנו בסדר. הילדים שהיו במסיבה, אלוהים ישמור, מסכנים. אני לא יכול לדבר הרבה, אני בדיוק מחלץ פה מהמסיבה, מהבלגן.
טוב, בסדר.
יאללה, נדבר, ביי.
טוב.
אני שמחה שלא...
שלא יהיה לך ספק, אני חושב שכלים יורים לכל כיוון. אתה שם את הכל בצד, את הפחד, את המשפחה, את הכל אתה שם בצד, ונכנס פנימה להוציא אותם. אין פה אף אחד, לא היה פה אף אחד, לא יכול להיות. לא היה אף אחד שם.
This is a military occupation. As long as you have these policies in place, you will never get to the root of the violence, Piers.
All right, Mossab, there was an allegation there that you think all Muslims are terrorists. What's your response to what Abby Martin said?
Well, you know, this is Abi's desperate attempt to discredit me. I am a man of the field. I fought against Hamas as part of intelligence, legitimate intelligence organization, against savage group that were targeting civilians in suicide bombing attacks, waves of suicide bombing attacks that they killed people indiscriminately. So Abi today want me for some reason to apologize for saving human life because my truth challenges her convenient truth. Abby does not have the authority. She's just a self-appointed low-grade journalist. How can you be a journalist and you call this a genocide, ethnic cleansing? And she just keep repeating ethnic cleansing, genocide, colonialism, etc. None of it is real, including Palestine. It's only in your head. None of it is existential. Palestine was never born. How can you free it? It was never there. It's just a colonial entity, and some people choose to make it into a national identity. And this parrot has been just repeating Hamas propaganda. Marwan Barghouti that she's talking about him, she never met him. I knew Marwan before he got to power. He's a criminal. He killed 5 people. He has blood on his hands. He cheated on his wife. He has a secret son that he never revealed it to the public. Of course, I can criticize him, and I can criticize all the criminals that I know personally. She's been there only for a visit, and maybe she had some falafel sandwich, you know, and she really was blown away of the Palestinian experience. There is no such a thing as Palestine. It's about time to retire, find a different job. You're not a journalist. You don't qualify even to be a mother.
Wow. Are you allowed to resist the Israelis? And it's a question to both you and Mossad. So is there any legitimate form of resistance that the Palestinians could do where the Israelis wouldn't kill them and we could say, oh yeah, there you go. Let's fight for a state that way.
Let me
guess
put
is
that.
no. They
Well,
call everything terrorism.
Okay, let me ask Mossad that very question, because that's been put to me by a lot of Palestinians, a lot of pro-Palestinian voices as well, which is, it depends how you frame what Hamas and Hezbollah have been doing for the last 2 or 3 decades. You know, to many people where they come from, they are a form of resistance. To many people outside of the region, they're terrorists. You know, I think you and I share our view about what we think they are, but clearly a lot of people in the Palestinian world believe that Hamas and Hezbollah are not terrorists, but are essentially a form of freedom fighter. What do you say to that?
Listen, killing, looting, raping, kidnapping are not forms of resistance. You know, Gandhi led resistance in India against the British. It was a peaceful resistance. It bare fruit eventually. But what so-called Palestinians and the Palestinian revolution, it's a revolution without a compass. It's going to nowhere, and nothing can satisfy their ambition. And it has never been a fight over land. It's a religious fight that started some 1400 years ago. It's motivated by great hatred against the Jewish people. They don't want to accept the Jewish people to exist in that land, and the entire world is in denial in this fact. We say that this is the root cause problem, that the Muslims don't want the Jewish people to return to their homeland. The Jewish people are the indigenous of that land, with overwhelming evidence, as I told you in the past. The Muslims don't have any evidence that support actually their connection to that land. They are invaders, and the Palestinians invaded the land. They are not an ethnic group. Then now they have been trying so hard to delegitimize the Jewish people. And what I say to the Palestinians, first of all, you need to prove your legitimacy before you try to delegitimize the indigenous people of the land. Once you succeed of showing us who you are, then we may talk to you about a state. But to claim that you have the land, even though the indigenous of the land, the Jewish people, actually have been willing to share the land, and they were willing back in 1948 to share the land with the Arabs, but the Arabs refused. They had equal opportunity, just like the Jewish people, to declare their independence. But instead of declaring their independence back in 1948, they declared war against the Jewish people, only because they are Jewish people. Then 40 years later, in 1988, they declared their independence. So, once what so-called Palestinians drop their violent approach to the problem and accept Israel's right to exist in that region, then we can talk about things. But to really water it down and say that this is a conspiracy, people like Cenk, they are living in a conspiracy theory, alternative reality. We tell them that this war, that Sinwar started in Gaza, is a very dirty war. He weaponized civilians only to get sympathy of people like Cenk and many others around the globe.
To leave the Gaza Strip.
Yes, guys, you have heard correctly. Till 2005, Jewish people did live in Gaza, and the community was growing. Not only the community was growing, but the land was used to produce so much fruit and vegetables that was a true miracle. The Jewish people not only produced food to sustain themselves, but they also exported fruits, vegetables, flowers all over the world. It was a true pride of Gaza. This Jewish community that was producing so much of this land. So you not only had farms, farmers, greenhouses, but also factories where the food was packed, was distributed and sent all over the world It was a booming economy in Gaza. I mean, look at this. Those are pictures of flowers that were grown in Gaza, and they were exported to Europe. There were also animal farms in Gaza, and the Jewish community was proud of this heritage because when they came to Gaza, it was a barren land. There was nothing. And yet, in just a short time, this land could be transformed into a life-giving source. But then a tragedy happened. Ariel Sharon, a former prime minister of Israel, under the growing pressure from the West, made a controversial decision to withdraw all Jewish people from Gaza. As you can imagine, this was a dramatic event for the communities living in Gaza, who lived there and saw their future in Gaza. Many people, actually most of the people, did not want to leave, and they had to be removed by force. A very tragic time in Israel, very controversial time in Israel that today is often forgotten. And what I want to emphasize here is that when Israel left, when the Jewish people left Gaza, they left behind a whole infrastructure that was already set up in Gaza. You had homes, you had factories, you had farmlands, equipment. Everything was left. A lot of money was invested in it, but yet Israel made this decision to leave Gaza. Now listen to the words of this Israeli soldier.
The mission is completed. An era has ended. From this moment on, the responsibility for all that takes place in Gaza Strip lays on the Palestinians. The responsibility for the security of the Israelis is all ours.
These were almost prophetic words because in 2006 the elections were organized in Gaza, where the people of Gaza have chosen that an organization called Hamas should rule them. Hamas not only won the elections, but started to eliminate its biggest rival, political rival, the Fatah party. Now, just to give you a perspective, from 2007 to 2010, the international community gave $7.7 billion for Gaza. Then in 2014, during the Cairo conference, another $5.4 billion were pledged to develop Gaza. Then again, from 2014 to 2020, Gaza received from the international community $4.5 billion. And there are many other organizations and nations that are giving support to Gaza. But if we just take those numbers, we come up to a staggering number of $17.6 billion. Now, this is almost the amount of the GDP of Iceland and more than the GDP of Jamaica. And those are whole countries. Remember, Gaza is a very small territory. Now, despite all this money that went to Gaza, Gaza still looks like a slum. And this may surprise you. But why is that? Why Gaza still looks like a slum after pumping in so much money to this very, very small territory? Well, first of all, because Hamas is extremely corrupt. So they're not just an evil organization, but they are also extremely corrupt. I mean, look at those figures. Those are the leaders of Hamas, and they are worth billions of dollars. They are living in Qatar, living a very nice life, enjoying the good food, enjoying the villas, everything. All the money that the world sends to Hamas, to Gaza, ends up in their pockets. But there's also another reason that I must mention here. Remember when I told you that when the Jewish people left Gaza, they left behind a whole infrastructure that was left there and was ready to use. Many farmlands, many factories, greenhouses, everything was left in the place where the Jewish people lived. But do you know what the Palestinians did? They came and they saw how the Jewish people lived, and instead of using it, out of envy, they started destroying everything. They started burning greenhouses, destroying farmlands, killing the animals even. Everything was destroyed out of this hate towards the Jewish people. And I will come back to this point because it's very important to understand this also from the biblical perspective. But I want to mention one more thing. Hamas not only did not use the money that was given to them by the international community, but also destroyed what was built by the international community to improve the lives of regular Palestinians. So what they did in Gaza is actually astonishing. They started digging up the pipes that were used for sewage and water supply in Gaza and using those pipes to turn them into missiles that would later be used against Israel. This is the way that the money that the international community sends is used. They just destroy everything. They are not interested in helping themselves. All they are concentrated on is destroying Israel. They would rather destroy Israel than live a good life. So now let's go back in time to the events of the Bible. And the territory that today we understand as Gaza used to be settled by the people called Philistines. Now, if you're interested in the origins of the Philistines, I have an episode on this topic. I will leave a link to this video in the description of this video. I just want to mention one thing, that the ancient Philistines have nothing to do with the modern Palestinians. There are, however, things that the modern Palestinians and the ancient Philistines have in common. One thing is that they live on the same territory, so the Philistines used to live where the Palestinians of Gaza live today. And the second thing that they have in common is that what we learn in the Bible, and that's a behavior, a certain type of behavior that we see towards the Jewish people. Now, in the 26th chapter of the first book of Moses, we read a very interesting story of Isaac. We read that Isaac, because of the famine, goes to Gerar to live in the land of the king of the Philistines. Now, we also learn that when Isaac goes to live there, God is blessing him tremendously, giving him all the blessings so that he is very prosperous. His flock is great, and everything he touches is basically a blessing. Now, we also get a very interesting detail in this story when Isaac is living in Gerar. We read that the Philistines have stopped the wells that were dug by his father Abraham, and they covered them with dirt. Now, why would they do that? This is very illogical. The wells are a great blessing, a source of water that is very important in the Middle East. The answer to those questions can be found in the previous verses, where we read that God has blessed him and he became very, very rich, and he continued to grow and become very wealthy. And he had many flocks, many herds. He had everything he could wish for. And then, in verse 14, we read that the Philistines envied him. Envy was the reason why the Philistines destroyed the wells of Abraham. And what happens next is interesting. Isaac starts digging the wells again, the wells that his father Abraham dug before him. And when he does that, the Philistines come and say to him, "This is our water, go away." And we must remember that they are the ones that destroyed the wells earlier. And now, again, envy is preventing them from receiving this blessing. So Isaac leaves and finds another well that he restores. But the situation repeats. The Philistines come and say to him, "Get out of here." So Isaac once again leaves this territory and finds another place. This time, when he restores the well, he's not bothered by anybody. Today, if we would go back to the place where the Jewish people lived, where there was a tremendous blessing to the region, you would not find anything. Everything would be destroyed. Why? Because of the sin, envy. Nothing has changed. Envy can blind us and prevent us from receiving a huge blessing. When Hamas attacked all those kibbutzim next to the Gaza Strip, all they left behind was destruction and death. They did not leave any life. They were destroying. As the Philistines were destroying the waters giving life, now the Palestinians were destroying lives by killing them. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
I just finished reading the New York Times article about Amit Susana, who was held hostage in captivity by Hamas, in which he tells very bravely how she was sexually abused and physically attacked, so raped and beaten up by Hamas. There are 134 hostages that are still being held in captivity by Hamas. They have to be freed, and Hamas just rejected yet another ceasefire offer. I am done with people not believing the hostages and the survivors. I'm done with it. It's not just anti-Semitic by now. It's simply inhumane. Israel has to do whatever it can to make sure that Hamas is defeated and that this doesn't happen again. This cannot happen again. So we all should read this article and applaud Amit and her brave account. And they have to be released. Bring them home. Let them go.